What I
I just-
understand is, it is normal for runners to, go under tents.
My kids
you
were
know,
runners. You
you know.
always do that.
And so
Well, then why wouldn't you just leave? If people ask you to leave.
there was some conversation that he was told to leave, and he was saying,
Well,
I
he
don't
had
want to.
been invited under the tent by a friend.
Yes.
He had been invited. One last thing, I know we're playing the
Say
music,
quick.
but Austin Metcalf's the victim, the deceased. His father went on a podcast, and listen to it for yourself, but he called Karmelo Anthony a racial slur. And he also said that the reason that black people weren't on the jury is because black people are unable to hold bias from the trial because...
That's true. He was correct. And the person that was black admitted that themselves in jury selection. But you're omitting that information, and you're making it sound like the dad was a racist for no reason.
I mean, let's not act like both things can't be true. We don't know where his racial stance was prior to this. Clearly, there was some tension between the victim and his son. I don't know if it stemmed from, the racial tension, but clearly they had some prior tension, prior to the incident that happened. But the bias he speaks of, I believe, I don't disagree with it, but I believe that it exists within every group of people. And I do feel like the fact that somebody's able to be transparent and be like, okay, this case is a little bit more than I can handle, and I'm not gonna be able to be unbiased, and I'm gonna be transparent about that versus me coming in with with an ulterior motive and being disingenuous and kind of playing my role. That way I can get into a certain position where I could apply that bias. I do think him being able to be transparent, it actually contradicts what you're saying. And like I said, I do believe this bias exists within all groups of people. I do believe if you were to flip the scenario where the victim was black and you have a all-white jury, I do believe that the chances of him being convicted or at least not being charged with self-defense also becomes a higher chance. And not only that, but I think most people agree with this, but the severity of what he was charged with is most likely not going to be that severe or as severe. So that's my take on that.
They don't know their own fathers, have a bunch of baby mamas running around living off of government assistance. So that is the thing. That's the thinking of the victim's father.
That's right.
Well,
so the implication is that the victim now, it's like more acceptable.
Let's not say that was the
I'm
victim's
not saying it was
thinking
the
as
thinking
well.
of the victim,
Good.
but of the victim's father.
So this is the reason why, for example, in like the Rick Chow case, I think that for these people, it is the most crucial and imperative thing to not only prove them wrong, but to completely spiritually destroy them.
Well, let me make a point, and I'm not able to say that I agree with these ladies, or I'm a big fan of The View. Typically, don't watch it too much, but I think the point and what she's trying to make is that if this is a man that raised the victim, and these are some of his views, this is maybe potentially what stemmed from the tension between the two. Because if you're raising a son and you have these racial views, you're not going to treat people of color with respect. You're going to treat them like they're lesser than you, which can be interpreted as bullying. And if it was, consistent, like I said, I don't know. We don't know all the history. We don't know how it got to the situation that it did. But if there was a history of bullying, we've seen kids react in this way just to bullying, where there's a kid bigger than them, picking on them. Eventually, there's that one day they've had enough and they want to do something about it. Not saying it's right, not saying it's justified, but I think that's more of a point in trying to, paint the picture that this may be a scenario if he's, because let's not act like people of the same race haven't, committed violence against one another. So the fact that his father went to a racial slur and such a unique one, it's the potential that he already looked down on people of color. There is a high chance, but like I said, not justifying anything.
And the way that you do that is you take people like Karmelo Anthony and you execute them publicly. You take people like the kid that was killed by Rick Chow, and you go and you find his family and you convict his parents for negligence and for allowing their kid to run around at 14 years old with a gun. It's not enough to get even with these people.
I don't like the fact that these two cases are even being compared, because I really don't find them to be too similar. I guess the kid had stolen from the store before, but that still doesn't justify, that use of force. And if somebody's running away, no matter what happened prior in this scenario, that is not, that is not, your life was not at threat in that specific scenario. So I don't believe it's right to shoot somebody in their back. I don't know why these cases have been now the comparables But I don't see how they're comparable.
You have to totally crush every single semblance of respect that they possibly have. Completely destroy them. Because this is what they're doing, and by the way, this is the correct thing to do. What they're doing whenever they're saying this is they're literally trying to inspire racial violence. They're trying to incite racial and like race riots. They're lying and omitting facts that would completely change people's perspective if they were shown, but they're not showing those facts. They're not telling those things. And the reason why is because they want to foment and promote more racial hatred, more racial bias, more racism, more division. And I think even beyond that, like if I think the government needs to come after these people. I think they do. They need to do whatever they can, pull every lever possible, invent new levers, figure out ways to take these people and hold them personally accountable, and then also destroy their show as well.
So, me personally, I disagree. I don't fully disagree, but I disagree with the stance that where he's like the government should come in and hold these people accountable. I feel like the government is. We know a lot of these things are a lot of times, especially as of recently, have been politically motivated. So the very person he's saying needs to come and do something about it, I think, is the same group that benefits from it. You know, when the George Floyd incident happened, we see how the whole political parties use that to their advantage. I think the View is politically aligned, and obviously they align more with the left. I feel like these, like I feel like the two party system benefits from the division. So that's where I would challenge Osmongold to also, look a little deeper into it. The same way you're saying the government should step in, I feel like they also are the ones that somewhat promote and also fuel a lot of this division in racism. That's why these shows exist. The View, I do feel like some one way or another they are left aligned. And as you can see, when Vice President you came on the show, even from just the way they presented their questions with him, they clearly are leaning one side. So that's my take on that. Let me know what you think in the comments.